In this deeply personal and powerful episode, I am joined by my 27-year-old son for an intergenerational conversation about the 3 V's of representation in K-12 education. Using real stories, we will reflect on what visibility, voice, and validation looked like in his school experiences and how it shaped his journey. This episode continues to focus on real talk, real solutions, and real impact, with a spotlight on how representation affects identity, belonging, and future possibilities. If you haven't already, please make sure you check out my second episode where I talk specifically about the 3 V's of representation. I define each term and provide examples of how they should look, feel, and sound, and how they play out in schools. Feel free to also check out episodes 3 and 4 where I interview and talk with my oldest son and my nephew about their experiences in schools. Please also make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You're going to catch all the new episodes. You can see me on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Podchaser. I'm on several different podcast stations. Please remember to like and subscribe if you like what you're hearing so that you can be notified when new episodes come out.
Welcome to Real Talk with Dr. Ruthie Uncensored.
I am Dr. Ruthie Payno-Simmons.
Get honest about the real challenges and possibilities in education and beyond.
Welcome back to Keeping It Real with Dr. Ruthie Payno-Simmons Unfiltered. I'm your host, the inclusive disruptor, and I'm joined by my youngest son who is here to reflect on his K-12 experience through the lens of the 3 V's of representation: visibility, voice, and validation. We're talking real experiences, nothing filtered, and nothing watered down. I'm so excited that Jaden is in the studio today. So I just wanted to kind of start with a warm-up question. If you could describe your school experience in 3 words, what would they be and why?
Definitely, I don't think I have 3 words to describe it, but as soon as you asked me the question, the word invisible came up. And I think for the most part, it was my own decision to stay invisible, but I was definitely influenced by some of my earlier experiences in school to not be seen. It just felt less burdensome to not be seen or heard. I felt like more experiences were negative when I was seen for her. So just early on, I just decided to not be seen.
And that takes me to a question around visibility, and we're getting to visibility. Growing up, did you feel seen at school? Did you see yourself in the curriculum? Did you feel seen by teachers? Did you feel seen by your principal or other administrators?
Yes, I was seen, but I would not necessarily say I was seen in a positive light or it even having a positive effect on me. And that's what I was hinting at earlier. Early on in whole, I was unseen by the students and people my age, but I was definitely in the spotlight of adults and people of authority. And most of the time, whenever I had interactions with either or, they weren't necessarily positive.
Do you have any examples you want to share?
The most prominent one in my mind that I'll have a triggering moment and I'll just remembering this happening is having my teacher read. I should start off with a little bit of context. Every day we would write for about 20 minutes and the teacher would give a prompt or theme that we're supposed to be writing about. And she would select a couple of students to read those words in front of the class. And specifically, one of the first 3 times this was ever done, it felt for me at least, since I was new to whole, my paper was read out loud and the teacher crumbled it up and threw it away. She was mad that my name wasn't on it and believed that it was off themed or something. But I just remember literally being only maybe about twice the size of the trash can that she threw that paper away in. So like I had a good bird's eye view and just, I don't know, I feel like my emotions sunk as deep as the trash hit the bottom of the can. And at that moment, it just, something clicked within me to stay unseen so that things like that wouldn't happen. So I actively made the decision to stay back and not have a voice or be seen. simply because the first 5 to 6 to 7 to 10 interactions I've had with people, I was a new kid. I was black, long hair, smooth facial features, so it wasn't like I was like easily seen as a little boy at the time. So it was probably very confusing for the students to want or even know how to approach me, especially if they didn't have a lot of experience doing that. So I understand that, but I feel like that could have been negated a lot by the staff and adults who could pretty much see the eggshells that people walked around when I was in the area, or if it was like a collaborative project to work on.
Yeah, it's still hard for me to hear that story when I hear it. I know that the students that were in your classroom in third grade became the students you traveled from grade to grade with. How did students treat you after that?
Interestingly enough, once I got integrated into the whole, there were only a finite amount of people who accepted me and were willing to take a first step to even get to know me. And those are some of the people I still interact with like to this day. So to answer your question, I guess more fully, as soon as I went to whole all the way until maybe about the beginning of high school, I didn't have a positive experience with most kids. It was either, again, a lot of eggshell walking or just straight up, they wouldn't even acknowledge my existence. I truly believe it stems from them just not having experience of people like me or like my walk of life.
Can you talk about there being only 2 other Black students?
Yep. All the way up until my 7th grade year, I knew the other 2 Black people in the whole school, and they were actually in my class. And they were integrated within Holt much longer than me. So from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, it was the exact same class for these students. So like they shared the exact classes that they've always have since probably even before 2nd grade. I just knew by the time I got there that all of these people had past relationships, including the teacher themselves. I was just so young that when I did come to Holt, I wasn't necessarily their cup of tea, is the best way to put it.
So when you say cup of tea, what does that mean?
I just remember early on, especially being in a class that was predominantly white, seeing 2 people that were close to my color was comforting, but they never made a real effort to connect with me. And I definitely made efforts to connect with both of them.
Yeah.
So at some point, you just feel like it's because they don't like you, especially when you're that young. It's not really higher thought process going on. You're just like, okay, I just want to play, laugh, and be loved. And they're not doing that with me. Therefore, they don't love me or like me. And as you equate it to that and you just move on.
I have a thought as I listen to you speak. Tell me what you think. Okay, so in your first semester being in a new school with a teacher and a group of students who looped is what the term is. Looping is when a teacher will stay with the same students for more than 1 year. Your brother had that at Post Oak in the Lansing School District. But he had an amazing teacher. Mrs. Jones was absolutely amazing. To be looped with someone who might not feel so amazing is a whole nother conversation. But I recalled after the teacher threw your writing in the trash that the students treated you differently, that they saw you differently, and I wonder if those 2 brown boys decided, or I don't know, it was a brown boy and a girl, if I remember correctly, yes, that once you got isolated like that by the teacher, if they didn't want to be associated with you for fear or concern of being rejected or seen as less than. Not that you were less than, but you were made to feel that you were less than. Is that accurate?
100%.
Okay.
In fact, I feel that young, they try to instill constructive criticism. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, they try to instill that in you young so that we'll be able to collab a lot better. Because once you hit about 5th, 6th grade, you're working with your peers. There we go. I could not think of that word.
I do it all the time.
Yeah. You're working with your peers a lot more once you've hit around like 5th grade. So they really try to instill a lot of social problem solving and collaborative effort techniques in you young. And I feel like as soon as she gave because there's constructive criticism and then there's just negativity and crumbling up the paper over some, maybe I didn't follow directions or whatever, but was not okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to name it. What Jaden's teacher did to him in 3rd grade was a type of violence. And when a student doesn't get something right, as a teacher or as an educator, our jobs are to support them in understanding where their misstep was in the process and then build their skill set to be able to do it the next time. Throwing someone's work in the trash and balling it up, especially when they're new in the system, was just a really horrible thing to do. And it paid in negative dividends over the course of your time because those students stayed with Jaden. You all stayed together all the way through until 7th grade. And even then they were still in circles, right?
I stayed with all of my whole people until I graduated.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I want to make sure I'm being accurate here. Okay, all right.
I disengaged with my whole class pretty early just because of those first 2 or 3 years of mostly just negative interactions, honestly. So it probably felt that way. Only a finite amount of people from early on really good friends.
And I know this. Were there any moments in your K-12 experience at all where, in terms of visibility, where you felt seen in a way that felt good
The first time,
about yourself?
the first time I've truly felt celebrated academic wise outside of the household, because obviously they definitely celebrated me a lot. And I told her this too, but a lot of my esteem was built in the household alone from them. I didn't really get a lot built from school. And the first time I truly felt being praised for anything I was doing within school was 7th grade, Mr. McGarry's class. Mr. McGarry was my English teacher. The very first time that I felt seen by him was when we used to do, what's the word for it? We would have you would have one student assigned by the end of the week to pick a song that would be played in this class. And then after the song was played, we might listen to it about 3 times altogether. We had a sheet of paper called Big Questions. And these are big questions like, why do we do the things that we do? What do you value, and why do you value, and why are things just valued differently? And these are big questions that you would answer towards the song that we listen to, or try to connect in a kind of way. Then I just connected it to a lot of the questions on the paper, and he realized that I am very articulate. You would listen to the song, and then you would simply just raise your hand and tell him what part of the song connected with you and what big question does it either ask or answer. And the very first day, I was probably talking for about 20 minutes about all of the big questions. I always wondered them myself. It was really cool to have those questions connect to something that I also hold dearly, music. So school for me opened up right around 7th grade, and that's when I started to how my identity was taking place. As soon as, like you said, he opened me up, I realized how much I loved. Like, I always knew I loved learning, but I love learning in terms of connecting it to something and applying it.
Yeah.
The application of what you learned is like the ultimate validation to what you just learned, you know?
Absolutely. And I just want to say right here, for those who are listening, especially educators, Jaden is sharing something really important, and that is examples of teachers like Mr. McGarry. So for teachers that are listening, and you know that you're doing those types of things where you are connecting with your students, you are considering their lived experiences, you are using different ways of getting students to show you what they know and to participate and engage. I just want to give my hands up and do snaps to you, because it's teachers like you that move the world, that shape things, that make changes in students' lives. This teacher did not know Jaden's experience up to 7th grade. Up to 7th grade, Jaden was trying to figure out who he was in that social space and at school, and had become pretty withdrawn. And I would even say had internalizing behaviors related to feeling rejected by that 3rd grade teacher and other adults in his experience. And then Mr. McGarry came along, and he saw Jaden. He saw Jaden, not who he thought Jaden should be, but who Jaden was.
Again, that was one of the first times I felt praised, and like we were talking about, like unlocked something for me. I always loved learning, but I definitely tuned out just because of how many negative interactions I had so early for when I first moved. And it just wasn't really on the forefront. School felt more like a thing to survive than anything else. And not even in, because some people, when you say that, they have real, like, when I say survival, I'm just trying to, like, I wasn't like heavy and bullying or nothing like that, but it was simply, I wanted to leave this space because this space wasn't for me.
If you are listening and you are a parent, there are things that I know from Jaden's story. If a teacher violated my child's emotional well-being or any of those types of things, or something needed to be discussed or addressed, his father and I were at the school. We handled everything that we knew about. What we didn't know was some of these things that we're learning about now. Like I know of now because we talk quite a bit, but there were certain things that we didn't know. Like to go back and know how he felt then would have shifted how I responded as a parent. Because this thing is not just about what schools do. It's about what we all do as a part of the school community, as a part of our children's village. And so there are definitely lessons learned for me because we were always trying to figure out, his dad and I, we were always trying to figure out why you felt the way you felt about school. And a lot of this now makes sense to me in terms of why you felt the way you felt. We're going to move now from visibility to voice. Were there spaces in school where you felt like your voice truly mattered?
Very finite spaces. There were maybe about 2 or 3 places where I felt like my voice truly mattered. One of them was definitely Mr. McGarry's classroom. He reawakened my love for learning, really. I love learning. He just reminded me of what I loved about learning is the application of what you learned is so validating to be praised, not only to be praised for it, but for it to be used, just to be used in general means something because it's something you have. Then and it can never be taken away from you.
And in terms of voice, it sounds like you're saying your voice mattered in his class.
In this class, during class, and he also had after school and during lunch spaces for people. He definitely would listen. I wasn't the only person who just felt like school wasn't like the environment for him. And we all ended up meeting him in that class a lot of the times. And it wasn't just a therapy session. There were many things going on in his class during lunch and after school. There would be board game tournaments. Have you just put on some streaming service TV show that was appropriate for students on and just be binge watching something. And also not only me, a lot of people felt very safe telling him exactly how they felt and where they were.
Yeah. Jada did a lot of writing in that classroom, and I want you to speak to that in just a moment. But before you do that, I want to say this. I knew the tables had turned for Jaden when he hit 7th grade because he came home from school one day and he was sharing his writing and what he had written about. And then he shared that he could see himself being a writing professor. That was a huge shift from like kindergarten through. I think you had some good experiences in your K2 because you were in a school for performing arts. So you could talk about that too in terms of what you liked and what you didn't like. I remember one teacher in particular that I really liked. She was on you, but I felt like she was on you in love. You know who I'm talking about in 2nd grade? Mrs. Henderson. Yeah. And I felt like she held you accountable in a loving way.
Yeah.
It's like it was like she was your coach. She called out things that you needed to do, but I never got a feeling from you or her that it was in a way that made you feel less than who you were.
Honestly, this is really important as a kid now that I think about it. She made some things that may have felt impossible not even feel like the slightest hurdle. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
As an adult, you're just constantly hurtling over problems and problem solving. And as a kid, sometimes any of those tasks just seemed daunting. Especially for me, any kind of task just felt like Mount Everest in front of me. And with the way that she would expose the problem by diagnose it and make a game plan with me, just made it seem anything just definitely felt possible.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. And again, we're very thoughtful about not being deficit, but we do want to be truthful. So we call out names of those that we're celebrating. We want to give honor to those teachers that had a lasting impact. And we are very discreet about those who maybe had some harmful practices, because even the teachers that were harmful may not have realized they were being harmful. And so we try to be thoughtful about that, but we're not giving them a pass. Okay. I'm not. As a parent, I'm not giving them a pass because we're professionals. We are responsible for supporting lives, and we need to be very thoughtful about how we make other people's children feel and how we treat them. And that is a critical thing. Anyway, back to Mr. McGarry, because you were talking about the writing. Mr. McGarry did not have a free for fun all classroom where you didn't work. They worked. They did a lot of writing. I believe I watched you develop your writing more precisely in that classroom.
First off, that was the first time I ever had a writing assignment that was required to be typed. So, yeah, that should tell you just how serious that class was. It was also the first time I typed anything past 3 pages. So, look, we did a whole lot of reading, and then we had to write about that reading, a lot.
Yeah.
We definitely had fun, but he made it fun. It wasn't like a fun because there was a lack of work or anything. So so I like jokes. I like being funny, and I feel like most kids do, and we love to laugh. I will never forget this. We were working on Shakespeare, and we would have to have Word docs, just like a bank of words, just because there were a lot of them that we weren't familiar with reading or knowing with a 7th grade reading level. And we would always read over the words. He would give us the definition, and then it would be a fun little game. Whoever can raise their hand, and while we're reading, be like, that's one of the words right there, and answer it, and get a little Jolly Rancher or something. But the way he would have this is like one of those. This was brilliant because I never thought about it until I was older. But he would literally, when he was going over the words, so this has stuck with me.
Yeah.
This is how he said the word for the very first time. He says, and he literally, so the paper's right here, right? And pretend this mic is the paper. He does this. Vexation. It just says that. That's all he said. And it's like, I think you loved it. You loved it. So like, how the delivery was so funny. That stuck with me to the first, like, it wasn't even the first word that we came across in the reading, but that just definitely read my paper. We found vex. What's vexing? Something's annoying. But you got to get the context for reading it. And from that day 11, I didn't realize how much of a passion I had for just words and how to use them and structurally putting them in the impact they have by the position they're in the statement.
I love that. You needed to have spaces where you could like think and make your thinking visible, and for you to feel like you needed to retreat and intentionally be invisible for safety meant there were many years where you didn't get to expand on that in the space where you were supposed to be expanding. And I'm thankful to Mr. McGarry for disrupting the harm that came to you in your schooling experience. And I posed the question, what if because I had a similar experience. As I remember a handful of teachers that had a great impact on me. What if I could say that every teacher I had was Mr. McGarry or Miss Henderson or Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Henderson and Mrs. Jones?
I was never a fan of English as a subject until Mr. McGarry. Like, writing felt cumbersome, and it felt like a project on its own. And it was after his class that I actually had a passion for it. So I feel like if you had more teachers that were expressing the way that he is and able to make you look differently at academics, you'd probably have a lot more people just passionate about
learning and subjects. Okay.
100%.
I love that. Okay. When you spoke up in school, how were you received, especially by teachers or administrators?
So the saying, closed mouths don't get fed, I felt like I was fed poison in 3rd grade, so I cut my mouth closed.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Nothing positive came out of opening my mouth, or that's how I felt. So I just felt like it was never a good idea so I never did.
Okay. What message do you think your school gave you directly or indirectly about whose voice mattered the most?
my voice never mattered. I've actually have had that thought process while in Hope, was my voice doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter. That was literally the thought process, was get what I need and get going.
Okay. And again, do you feel like that shifted with your seventh grade teacher?
That was the only time there was hope where I wouldn't feel that way.
But eighth grade through?
Eighth grade through, my voice did not matter.
How'd that make you feel?
Back to surviving school.
I'm sorry, Jaden. Okay, so let's go to validation. Okay, so for validation, did your identity, race, culture, and interests feel affirmed by your teachers or school practices?
No.
What about in Lansing?
100%.
What was the difference in your opinion?
It's a great question. I think you were just celebrated more for your individuality. I think in Lansing you were just celebrated more in general.
Did you have more teachers who looked like you in Lansing?
Yes.
Did that make a difference for you?
I think I was too young for it to make a real impact.
That you were, or maybe
Or
aware?
I was too young to be aware of the impact that I could have had.
Okay.
Way of putting it.
And full disclosure, Mr. McGarry, your seventh grade teacher, perceivable is a white male, right?
Yes.
So this is another thing I want to say, because I, as an educator, as a person who is a teacher and a building administrator, a district administrator, a parent, and now I'm a technical assistance provider. A lot of times I have white teachers ask me, how can I understand more about who my students are, and how can I make up for the gap in terms of how we might have cultural differences? And I think that Mr. McGarry's is an example of a white male who built relationships with his students, got to know his students, got to know what they were passionate about, validated them in some powerful ways. I guess we're going to hear about that in a moment here. And in that was able to be more culturally responsive and sustaining. So we might show up different from our students, but even when we show up different from our students, no matter what our identities are, we have opportunities to get to know who our students are. And then through getting to know them, what makes them happy, or makes them exciting, what they're interested in, what their talents are, where they're gifted, and then bring that into the space, it makes a difference. Okay, so I think that's really important. Can you think of a moment when you felt validated or invalidated?
Another time, and this was probably the last time I actually felt validated and hope. I just want to give a special shout out, Mr. Lawatsch.
Yeah. Was he your math teacher?
Yep.
Yeah.
My math teacher
Yeah.
was algebra.
Yes.
Math, and again, I had a reawakening in seventh grade with my academics, literally all thanks to Mr. McGarry re-showing me what I was passionate about in the first place. So fast forward to 10th grade, kind of a new school. It's the same, it's still whole, but it's a new school.
New building, more kids.
Everything that would add to anxiety. So I sunk back into my shell just because of how much anxiety I had, and I went back to surviving school opposed to taking as much as I can out of it. And here comes this algebra teacher, Mr. Lawatsch. And again, he connected with me he knew that I was goofy. Like, this was one of the, I felt so seen by him.
That's awesome.
3 weeks in, he knew exactly the kind of person I was and the best way to help me learn. I was not a popular kid, but I was well known, which I know this sounds like an oxymoron, but I was well known and not well received. It's the best way to put it. People still got along with me. They loved me for my jokes. So I was definitely just dumping them on, just joke after joke. He knew I was a funny guy. He also knew that I could he knew that my best friend was a straight A student who didn't have a lot of friends, but he also knew that I got around in the classroom. I was not just talking to one person. It was the whole class knew me. And so he connected to me through math and jokes. Just a really funny, honest guy. He was very human, very human. He would say something and everybody would definitely, not even in shock and awe, but he would gather everyone's interest with some of the things he would say. So this class was probably some of the most collaborative work you would have. He would teach everybody, show everybody, and then he would break everyone in squads, and then you would work on stuff. But he knew with me, like, I could talk with anybody. So by 10th grade, I was not well received, but I was definitely well known. People didn't have a problem saying something to me, like negative or positive at this point. Like, people would say hi, they'd be like, oh, I heard you do this and that, you know what I mean? But regardless, people did not have a problem like interacting with me.
Do you think having two brothers in high school, I know OJ's your cousin, but having two older siblings in high school helped? Because DJ was pretty.
For older people, yeah.
Okay.
It didn't really affect people.
Okay.
In the high school, in its totality, yes.
So his popularity.
Yeah.
Did you consider him to be popular?
Yeah. Oh, I've gotten rides home just because I was just, they're like, you DJ little brother? Yeah. They'd be like, you want to ride home? Then I'll drive real quick. I'm like, hey, Ben.
Did that help?
Yeah, 100%. But Mr. Lawatch, not literally, he saw how quick I was picking up math, and he was a very, like, parabolas. He would be, like, doing dances. He would know exactly how stuff is. He was very easy to remember, like, some of the stuff that's, like, hard to remember in math. So, like, he would make the building blocks of math very easy to pick up and remember, and he could build upon that.
I remember that.
He knew, so he had a discussion with me one day because I was really talkative. I'd get my work done, but it was to the point to where I was distracting other people who had a really hard time getting their work done. And he just told me, like, you have a real special talent. And so he literally told me, like, hey, yo, I know you talk a lot. Just use it constructively. Yes.
Did you?
100%. So literally my relationship with a lot of my class, especially in that class, changed just because I came off as friendly. I wasn't like smug because I knew everything. I genuinely, first off, so it was cool that kids were starting to engage with me, and mostly only positive at this point, which was like new for me. And not only that, but it reawakened what I loved about learning is the application. Is I would literally learn what we were learning, and then when it was time for us to go into groups, I would apply what I learned to try to teach as many other people who just weren't either interested or just not understanding it. Yeah. That was the ultimate validation you can get. You know what I mean?
That's really powerful. Yeah. And I remember that there's certain parent-teacher conferences that are more memorable and enjoyable. And I remember Mr. Lawatch used to say that when we would meet with him, and the three of us your dad and I, and you would meet with him, and he would lift you up and talk about your strengths, and he would talk about your talking, and I'd talk about how you were rechanneling it to support students. So going back to voice, did you feel like your voice was heard in his classroom?
100%.
Whatever. I got to throw a shout out to the music teacher, because the band teacher, because I thought he was exceptional, but tell me if I'm wrong.
100%. So
Mr. Emerson?
Yes, sir. Mr. E, that's my guy. So I had left Holt briefly for about a year. Yeah, about a year. And
early college?
Yep, early college. And I had to get reacclimated to Holt. And I actually stopped playing my saxophone for about 2 years by that point.
Really?
And yeah, I was still playing in church. And so this was something that always stuck with me. Gotta find the right words for this. It's the cousin to accepting me, but he went above and beyond. I had already felt like I didn't necessarily fit in with all of the band students, if you understand my drift.
No, I don't understand. Do you want to leave it there?
Yeah, we're gonna leave it there.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, I wasn't like all the other band students. I'm just gonna leave it like that.
Okay.
And there was maybe about 2 or 3 other people who felt that way about band, in the band with me, like student wise. And I probably wouldn't have stayed in band if it wasn't for Mr. Emerson being the kind of person he was, who open arms, open doors, always smiling. And I definitely got in trouble with him too. So it wasn't like he didn't let me get away with murder or anything like that. But it was such a change of pace from the other adults I've been instructed by.
I appreciate that. If you could go back and speak to one of your former teachers or principals, what would you want them to understand about your experience?
If I could go back, I haven't really spoken on this much, but this guy actually had a heavy impact on my decision making and the way I looked at myself and my peers. Mr. Billingsley, Mr. B, so in high school, bad or not, as a black kid, you are going to be in the office. They're going to talk to you. They're going to ask you questions. Something's going to happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the wrong. And Mr. B was the assistant principal. He had some of the most important work in that school, if you ask me, just because. So it didn't it impacted me differently than how it impacted the other students. I'm gonna say that right now. I more got to watch outside in simply because I wasn't getting in trouble a lot, nor did I need a whole lot of attention because I was getting enough attention at home and at school ultimately. But there are definitely students, especially Black students who, and it wasn't just Black students, but low income kids as well, just had a hard time in school with almost every aspect of it, but decision making, learning consequences, and knowing Mr. B was always going to be on your side. Right or wrong, he wasn't, you're definitely going to face consequences, but he knows that the most important place for a student to be is in school, and also to know that someone cares about you. And I definitely, if you were in the hallways, he was going to speak to you. And also he was one of those adults that everyone wanted to speak to. It speaks a lot.
Did he dap you up?
He dapped everyone. That was
You just thought about
Mr. B's
that.
the guy. For generations, Mr. B has been the guy.
Yeah.
And that's just really important.
Mr. Billingsley, a biracial male, a person seeing him would perceive him as a Black male.
100%.
Yeah, I appreciate it with all three of you. Whenever there was an issue at the high school level, we could sit down and talk, and he was definitely for you, even if he was holding you accountable. But what I appreciated about him was that he understands what it means to be a male and a Black male. To me, Mr. Billingsley served as a cultural broker. And what that means is that he could communicate cultural understandings and ways of knowing in a white space so that white teachers who may not have that understanding, he could translate between your culture, your ways of knowing, why you might have done something, even if you needed to be redirected in a way that a teacher that didn't understand your culture could understand it.
Most importantly, it's important because I'm Black, so that's really important. But just for the more general wide span of people, though, like he was able to communicate and be the broker for any kind of, whenever there was a disconnect, he would be the bridge.
The Black male, you appreciated that he was there as a Black male, but you saw him support all different types of students from all walks of life. That he loved his students.
As soon as he saw that there was a disconnect between a student and faculty, he was there.
The bridge. Yeah. Imagine if all of our assistant principals were like that. How fewer suspensions and exclusionary practices would happen in schools. And I saw that with him, that suspension was not his first answer. And that can make teachers upset if they feel like you should be suspended for your behavior. But what they don't always understand is there's so much more to the context and picture. And the more you're out of school, the more you have to catch up, the more you feel disenfranchised, the more you feel disconnected, the more you might close up and become invisible for protection. And so I had a lot of respect for him. I remember the experience you had with the band parent when you went to the school. You want to share that story, and then we'll close up.
So we lived about a 7-minute walk away from the high school. So by the time I was in high school, I was walking. And with that said, I had access to that school from morning till night till they closed up. Meaning that a lot of the times when school ended, there was like a whole breakfast club worth of people hanging out, and I was one of them. So that was pretty much a second home for me. And every day I'd spend a good 2, 3, 4 hours after school just hanging out at common lunch tables with people, just walk around the school, kikiing. And sometimes that would work out perfectly for me because being in band, you would have that meant the first semester you were doing marching band. And with marching band, that means you're marching, which really you would have to use the practice, like the football field, to actually practice getting to your destination correctly and on time and whatnot. So with that said, that means you would need to be on the field after football and all that kind of stuff was over. So that meant we would have marching band practice after school at 7:30, 8:30. And sometimes I would either just stay at the school all the way until it was time to go do marching band, or I would go home, hang out, and come back.
Yeah.
One time I stayed after school and was getting ready to go outside to the practice football field with one of my friends and also bandmates, who, this is actually important, he felt the same way I felt about band and the students there, that we belonged, I guess, but we weren't like them.
When you say weren't like them, meaning Did you just feel that way, or were they behaving in a way that made you feel that way?
They're behaving socially unacceptable. Okay. So walking to the field, I need to use the bathroom. I'm like, we're about to march for a good hour and a half. And he'd let you leave and use the bathroom, but I'm close to the door to get back inside to the high school to use the bathroom. Might as well do this now instead of being all on the field and then having to go try to beat the clock. You know what I'm saying? And as I approached the door, a parent, was it a parent or
A
something?
band parent who was a volunteer. She was a consistent there.
Volunteer stepped in front of me and said, well, where are you going? I told her, I just need to use the bathroom real quick. And she told me, there are some trees over there you can go pee at. And at this point, I kind of lost it because, first off, that's a crime. You're not supposed to be.
She's also letting other students go in.
Also letting other students go in.
Other white students
Other
go
white
in.
students. She's also letting other white students go in. She just, for some reason, felt uncomfortable with allowing me to go in. But once because I gave her a really weird look, because it's a weird statement to say to someone who's
Yes,
like,
illegal to pee in
underage.
public, yes.
It's illegal to pee out, but also I'm in high school. Why are you telling me to go pee in the tree and I don't know you? You know what I mean? Like, so I gave her a really strange look. So then she allowed me to use the bathroom, but she followed me all the way to the men's sign and then waited outside the door until I got done and escorted us back out. And at that point, I wasn't even doing the rest of band practice because
you didn't. You called me.
Literally felt like I was being transported to a bathroom in a prison.
Surveilled, yeah.
Yeah. I felt like they took the cuffs off me to go use the bathroom real quick.
So Jaden called me. He was very upset. And of course, I jumped in my car. I was the executive director of curriculum and staff development at the district. So I worked with the superintendent. And I went around the corner, and I was a mother. I was a mother at that point. I was not the executive, but I was very aware that I was a Black woman, that the band mother was a white woman, and that I was an administrator in the district. So I had to be thoughtful about how I responded. I saw her. I didn't park my car. I jumped out of it. I walked up to her. She was walking with a board member. So I was really feeling like, ooh, this might get tricky. I asked her what happened. And she tried to explain it. And I said, you told my son to go pee by a tree. Because you understand that people can be arrested for that. That is illegal. You told him to do something illegal. And then you watched him to the restroom. You wouldn't let him in at first. And then when you did, you followed him. I said, were you surveilling my child? Were you profiling him? And she was really upset. And she was like, no, that wasn't her intent. She was very nice to him. So the next day, after having a conversation with her, I asked Mr. B to pull the videos so that I could see what happened. And I could see from looking at the videos that she was not very nice to Jaden. Her body language was very hostile to him. And I had to, at that point, have Jaden's father come up and talk with my colleague and boss, the superintendent, because I was too close to it. But my demand was an apology to Jaden because he was treated wrong. And what I saw in the video really made me upset because there were children going in and out of the building the whole time. She did not question one-way student. She did not stop one-way student. She let them all in. And then when Jaden walked up, she questioned him. It felt very harassed-like.
The building's unlocked.
And then, the building's unlocked. And by the way, the high school's open because there are different events going on, so students come and go. But the way that she treated him was very different from how she treated the other students. Now, I do believe she did not realize what she was doing. I do believe that there was some implicit bias happening, and I do a lot of work around that. By the way, let me throw this in here really quick. I support schools and continuous improvement to increase academic outcomes, but also I engage in helping to increase student wellness, student belonging, inclusivity, and centering equity within school systems. So situations like this adult didn't know she was being harmful. It wasn't until we had to talk through her that she realized what it felt like, what it might have felt like for Jaden. And she did apologize profusely after the fact. But intent and impact are two different things. When you think about Jaden's story and all the things he had already experienced in his K-12, this was like he was just done. He was just so tired of being made to feel the way that he did. And that was like an opportunity for her to do something positive, but because she didn't know how she was presenting or how she perceived him unconsciously, she treated him that way, and the impact was very negative for him. So what I appreciate about her is that she acknowledged the harm, and also I don't think that she intentionally wanted to be hurtful. I think she just didn't understand how she'd been conditioned to see different types of students. But if I'm wrong, you can speak to that. Just my interactions with her, she was appalled. She was appalled. She She was very clear that she wasn't racist and that she would never do anything to hurt Jaden based on his race. And I believe that. I just believe that she still did harm and that needed to be redressed. And she did. She dealt with it. So that was that. And so we all need to know that there could be a gap between what we value and what we do. And so we can value treating all students fair, but not realize we've been conditioned to see students differently and then act that way. We have to wrap up. So what I want to know is, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to educators today who truly want to make representation and belonging real in schools?
Connecting with students comes in many different forms.
So let's just expound just a little bit, if you don't mind, on what you said about connecting happens on multiple levels. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the two teachers who connected with me the most didn't look, talk, or necessarily see the same things I saw, but they both found a way to connect with me that made me realize how much I do care about learning.
Now, I'm going to do this because I need to, because a lot of my conversations focus on things that we can do to be better. But I think 3 of those teachers, 2 of them, they were white males, right? Mr. Lawatsch,
Mr. Lawatch and Mr. McGarry.
Mr. McGarry, and then Mr. Emerson.
Mr. Emerson.
So I just want to encourage you as white educators working with diverse student populations that connection is so important. Making sure students feel seen in positive ways matter. Making sure students' voices are heard, that their voices are reflected in the decisions that are made, and validation is so important. So you may not have the same cultural background as a student that you're supporting or your students, but if you can connect with them in a way where they feel visible in positive ways, they feel like their voice matters, and they feel validated in the wholeness of who they are and how they show up, that can have a profound impact on them, just as we heard with Jaden and his experience at 7th grade. And for teachers who are working with students academically, don't throw their papers in the garbage if they don't get something the way that you want them to. Don't make them feel bad in front of their peers who are then the students are going to do what the adults are doing. So if you're ridiculing a student, students are going to ridicule the student. Jaden had to deal with that. He said he didn't experience a lot of bullying, but he did experience a lot of teasing and some bullying at the bus stop in particular. And these were people that were part of the classroom where his teacher balled his paper up and threw it away. And so that kind of harm is very difficult to undo. And so we want to be thoughtful about that. And that is also something that I support through RPS Educational Impact in terms of coming in and being a partner with you and your school to increase awareness about how to amplify student voice and increase student belonging. If you want to keep this conversation going, tell me, how are you embedding authentic representation in school? In particular, how are you connecting with students? That's the theme that goes through Jaden's interview, that connection is really important, right? Connection in many ways is protection. Protection of what? Protection of students' identities, protecting the likelihood that they will have a positive image of themselves, and cultivating positive images of them through the eyes of others. You can follow me on YouTube to keep the conversation going. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter. It's called Real Talk with Dr. Ruthie. And you can also follow me on TikTok. You can follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. And when you follow this, here's something to think about. How are you making sure you're increasing authentic representation through visibility, voice, and validation? Share some of your strategies, because on one hand, it may be that you have, and I believe that truly, that many of you are out there doing important work. If you can share some of your strategies in the chat, that would allow for those who are watching this not only to learn from Jaden and to learn from our conversations and his story, but also from the work that you're doing, because I know that you're doing good work. So share your thoughts. And then, of course, share this video if you have those who you think would benefit from hearing it. But thank you for joining us for this episode of Keeping It Real with Dr. Ruthie Payno-Simmons Uncensored. Thank you so much for being an amazing son and guest. And I look forward to continuing to learn from you. And we look forward to hearing from you all. Until next time, remember to keep it real. Thank you so much for joining Real Talk with Dr. Ruthie Payno-Simmons Uncensored. I truly appreciate you taking time to listen. In addition to this podcast, I have a company called RPS Educational Impact, where I support school districts, educational entities, and other organizations who are wanting to improve their systems through continuous improvement processes, and also those who want to make sure that the systems are working for all students and for the school community. RPS Educational Impact is dedicated to empowering students, families, and educators. Our mission is to support educational agencies in developing innovative solutions that strengthen educational practices, policies that enrich learning experiences, and support each student's success. So visit rpsimpact.com to find out more about the technical assistance that we can provide you upon request.
Welcome to Real Talk with Dr. Ruthie Uncensored.
I am Dr. Ruthie
Where we
Payno-Simmons.
get honest about the real challenges and possibilities in education and beyond.